There are two types of workplace deaths. The first are sudden, a fall, a machine malfunction, an instant tragedy that ends before anyone realizes what's happening. The second are prolonged, trapped, conscious, and aware, where you have time to understand what's happening to you, time to scream, time to realize no one is coming, time to feel your body betray you as the temperature climbs and climbs. And unfortunately for Jose Molina, his death was the second type. On October 11, 2012, at the Bumblebee Foods tuna processing plant in Santa Fe Springs, California, a 62-year-old maintenance worker entered a 35-foot industrial oven to fix a jammed chain. His co-workers didn't know he was inside. They loaded 6 tons of canned tuna into the oven. They sealed the door, they turned it on, and the temperatures climbed to 270 degrees Fahrenheit. For 2 agonizing hours, Jose Molina was cooked alive alongside 12,000 pounds of tuna. When they finally found him, the firefighters turned away. This is a true story of the death of Jose Molina and the corporate negligence that killed him. But before we get into this topic, I really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. And with all that said, let's get straight into the video. At the Bumblebee Foods plant in Santa Fe Springs, roughly 18 miles southeast of downtown Los Angeles, the facility processed and canned tuna loin around the clock. The plant operated 10 massive retort ovens, cylindrical pressure cookers measuring 54 inches in diameter and 36 feet in length. These were not ovens in any conventional sense. They were industrial sterilization chambers. The ovens used pressurized steam at temperatures reaching 270 degrees Fahrenheit to cook and sterilize sealed aluminum cans of tuna. Each oven could hold approximately 12,000 pounds of product. The cans were stacked in large metal baskets, loaded onto wheeled carts and pushed into ovens using pallet jacks and forklifts. Once loaded, the massive front door would seal. Steam would flood the chamber, and for the next 2 hours the tuna would cook. The system was designed for efficiency, not safety. State regulators found that the chain that pulls carts of tunas into the oven sometimes gets snagged, requiring operators to enter the ovens to pull the carts through. This was not an occasional problem, it was routine. Workers regularly entered the ovens to make adjustments, clear jams, and manually reposition the heavy carts when the automated system failed. But here's the critical detail. Bumblebee had not identified that the ovens were a permit-required confined space and did not post danger signs or similar means to warn workers of the hazards of entering the ovens. There was no lockout tagout system, the standard industrial safety protocol that physically prevents machinery from being turned on while someone is working inside them. There were no permits, no spotters, no communication system, no emergency escape route. Workers just climbed in when something broke, and they climbed back out when they were done, unless they didn't. Jose Molina had worked at the plant for 6 years. He was considered a skilled and knowledgeable employee. His job was to load the ovens, push the baskets in, pull them out, keep the line moving. He knew the machines, he knew the risks, or at least he thought he did. And on that day, on October 11th, 2012, the shift began before dawn. 5 a.m., Jose Molina, 62 of Willington, was a father of 6. He arrived at the plant, clocked in, and was assigned to load one of the ovens. The routine was familiar. The morning was rather unremarkable, until the chain jammed. Molina had been assigned to load a particular oven on the morning of his death. He entered the 54-inch by 36-foot oven to make an adjustment to a chain inside. He left a pallet jack he used to load the tuna into the oven outside the oven. This was a standard procedure. The chain snagged quite frequently. Someone had to go in and fix them. So Jose left his pallet jack, the motorized equipment he used to push the heavy baskets, sitting outside the oven entrance. A silent marker that he was inside, working and not to be disturbed. But no one noticed. Around that time, another employee noticed that there was a pallet jack not being used. He assumed that Milena, the basket pusher who normally operated the pallet jack at this time, was in the bathroom, and the employee proceeded to use that pallet jack. That coworker, whose name was never released, saw an idle pallet jack. He assumed Milena had stepped away, maybe to the bathroom, maybe for a break, and the employee began using the equipment. He loaded his baskets of canned tuna, he pushed them toward the oven, the same oven that Jose Molina was inside. Cart after cart, basket after basket, 12,000 pounds of canned tuna, stacked and ready for sterilization. Time passed. How much exactly, the records don't specify. But at some point, a supervisor asked a question: "Where is Jose?" The report noted that as the employee continued working, a supervisor questioned why he was using Milena's pallet jack and where Milena was. The question triggered a search. An announcement was made over the business intercom, and employees began searching the plant for Milena, noticing that his vehicle remained in the parking lot. His car was still there, so he couldn't have left. So where was he? Workers searched the production floor, the break room, the bathrooms, the parking lot. They called his name. No response. The search continued. After searching for about an hour and a half, another worker suggested looking in the last oven that had been loaded. The last oven, the one that had just been turned on, the one that was now cooking. The one that had been sealed and pressurized for over 2 hours. It was at that point that the realization had hit. They couldn't open up the last oven immediately. The pressure had to equalize and the temperature had to drop. So they had to wait 30 minutes, an eternity, before they opened the door. And when they did, they discovered Milena's burned body inside. Firefighters responded to the scene and pronounced the badly burned man dead at about 7:20 a.m. An autopsy performed after his body was discovered inside the cooker determined that he had died from his burns. He had been inside the oven for approximately 2 hours at 270 degrees Fahrenheit, cooked alongside 6 tons of tuna. The California Division of Occupational Safety and Health launched an investigation. What they discovered was not an accident. It was a pattern of systemic negligence. The state agency issued 6 citations to Bumblebee Foods LLC, carrying around $73,000 in fines for 5 workplace safety violations deemed serious and 1 deemed general. The company was cited for failing to perform many inspections or audits related to energy control procedures for the production area. Essentially, Bumblebee Foods had no system to lock out the machinery when someone was inside, never classified the ovens as dangerous confined spaces despite workers routinely entering them, posted no warning signs, had no written safety program for confined space entry, never trained employees on confined space protocols, and never trained employees on how to avoid being cooked alive. But it gets worse. Though the Santa Fe Springs tuna canning facility had no reported safety violations prior to the fatal mishap on October 11th, the OSHA investigators learned during the investigation into Milena's death that the previous serious injuries had gone unreported to the state agency at the facility. One Bumblebee employee had her finger amputated after it got caught in a chute. Another employee suffered a fractured skull after falling from a forklift. Both injuries were never reported to OSHA. This wasn't negligence. This was concealment. The company had been hiding injuries, operating without oversight, gambling with workers' lives, and when their luck ran out, Jose Molina paid the price. For nearly 3 years, nothing happened. The investigation continued, the citations were appealed, and Bumblebee disputed the findings. And then on April 27, 2015, just before Workers' Memorial Day, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office filed criminal charges. They charged Bumblebee Foods LLC as well as a former safety manager, Saul Flores, and Angel Rodriguez, the director of the plant operations, with 3 felony counts of occupational safety and health administration violation causing death. This was quite extraordinary for the time. Prosecutions of workplace violations are uncommon, even in fatalities. Typically, companies end up paying fines or they settle out of court. They issue statements expressing condolences, but criminal charges, felonies, this almost never happens. Rodriguez, 63, of Riverside, and Flores, 42, could face up to 3 years in prison and fines up to $250,000 if convicted of all charges, and Bumblebee Food faces a maximum fine of $1.5 million. The case never went to trial. On August 12, 2015, Bumblebee Foods reached a settlement. The settlement is the largest known payout in a California criminal prosecution of workplace safety violations involving a single victim. Bumblebee will pay $3 million to replace all of its outdated tuna ovens with automated ovens, and will never require workers to set foot inside the superheated, pressurized steam cookers. The company will also pay $1.5 million in restitution to Molina's family, and it will pay the district attorney's Environmental Enforcement Fund $750,000 for workplace safety violations. For Jose Molina's family, a widow and 6 children, the settlement provided $1.5 million, less than $250,000 per surviving family member, for a death that was entirely preventable. Co-defendant Saul Flores, Bumblebee's former safety manager, pleaded guilty to a felony count of willfully violating lockout-tagout rules and proximately causing the victim's death. He was immediately sentenced to 3 years of formal probation. Flores was ordered to complete 30 days of community labor and take classes on lockout-tagout and confined spaces. Angel Rodriguez, Bumblebee's director of plant operations, would be allowed to plead guilty to a misdemeanor. So let me just summarize for you. The safety manager who failed to implement safety protocols got probation. The operations director who oversaw the unsafe conditions got a misdemeanor. The company paid $6 million, a fraction of its annual revenue, and agreed to finally install ovens that wouldn't require human beings to climb inside them. No one went to prison, no one served jail time, Jose Molina was cooked alive, and the punishment was fine and community service. Jose Molina's death was not an isolated incident. It was a part of a broader pattern of industrial negligence that kills American workers every day. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were approximately 5,109 fatal work injuries in the United States in 2021. That's 14 deaths per day, one every 103 minutes. And those are just the fatalities. Thousands more workers are maimed, burned, crushed, or permanently disabled every year. Confined space deaths specifically are well documented and tragically common. These deaths share common factors: inadequate training, failure to test atmospheric conditions, lack of lockout-tagout procedures, and insufficient emergency response plans. But here's the thing, these deaths are preventable. Every single one. The technology has existed, the regulations exist. OSHA has had confined space entry standards since 1993. Lockout-tagout requirements have been federal law since 1989. The rules are clear, the procedures are already established, the companies just have to follow them. In 2017, Bumblebee Foods pleaded guilty to price-fixing charges in an unrelated case and was ordered to pay a $25 million fine. In 2019, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In 2021, it emerged from bankruptcy under new ownership. The Santa Fe Springs plant is still operational. The old ovens have been replaced. Workers no longer enter them to clear jams. The cans still come off the line, the tuna still gets processed, the labels still promise quality and freshness. And somewhere in a cemetery in Los Angeles County, Jose Molina is buried. A 60-year-old father of 6, a 6-year veteran of Bumblebee Foods. A man who went to work one morning to fix a jammed chain and never came back. Now, thank you all so much for watching this video. This video in particular made me quite emotionally charged because this story, quite frankly, is entirely preventable and just unfortunately so tragic for Jose Molina and his family. Now, this video is a bit different from my normal videos. Typically, I do plane crashes and building crashes. However, I'd like to expand into this other side of topic as well. So let me know what you guys think. And I think YouTube thinks you like watching this video next. So go check that out. And with all that said, I will see you guys in the next video.